Are we live yet? Oh, there we go. All right, let me get my messages set up here. All right. No, Fish and Football, Judge Dredd. Hello, hello, hello. From YouTube. Oh, the Edge. I know who you're talking about. His is he wears like a wool stocking cap. This is actually smooth. This is just a skull cap. This isn't a beanie. I guess technically it counts as a beanie. I never think about it as a beanie. All right, everybody, let's get started on tonight. I actually had something I wanted to do tonight. I don't think we're going to be able to do it. God damn it. All right, I got to lay off the coffee too. All right, let's get started with the goldfish pond. And if we actually do anything tonight, it's going to be in this pond. And what I wanted to do is, and we still are going to do some work. I want to work on the inflow area here. All of those rocks and everything you see that's sitting on this is sitting on a plastic table. I went to Home Depot and I got one of those storage shelves that are stackable. They're like 4 shelves high, but each shelf is basically just like an individual plastic shelf, and the legs just fit into the top of the one above it. So I just used the bottom one and didn't use the other 3. And I use that as the main thing that, again, it's covered in rocks and woodwork and plants. And the more, biocultures that grow in there, it's basically like creating its own mud and dirt and everything else. And it's getting heavier and heavier. So what I want to do is take one of the legs off of one of the sections I didn't use and prop it up under that middle section and bring that bowed in bottom, back up and prop it. But I can't find it anywhere. I remember sticking it somewhere so I would be able to use it if I ever needed it again, but I can't find it. See, I mean, we've got water coming all the way back here and flowing out the back. It should just kind of flow down through this log and off the end and maybe a little go out the other side because there's a hole in the bottom of the log. But it's getting really, really fucking saggy down here. But again, you can see the amount of rocks and everything I've got piled on this. So I'm just dreading coming down here one morning and the whole thing is just collapsed into the pond. That would really, really suck. And I guess we should probably water this too. That's looking pretty peaked. All right, that's a little bit of a watering. That's a little bit more of a watering. All right, that ought to be enough to drain the stuff out of the bottom. And we'll turn it around. So it's lying down looking like that. By tomorrow, it'll be facing the other direction, pointing back at the light again already. So, all right, let's get these buggers fed. And what I wanted to do was a water change on this tank. And while it was draining, I could get underneath of there and prop it up. So maybe we'll save that for Sunday, and I'll spend the weekend looking for the damn pieces I need to put under there. Because as of now, I cannot find them. Oh, thank you, Judge Dredd. All right, let us start with the flakes. And watch them all go mad. All right, as far as my weed tonight, I just had enough time to get a bowl packed before I went live. So that's actually just a bowl. Doesn't have any hash oil on it or anything. And this is actually my Blue Dream. I thought I'd splurge a little bit tonight. I got very little of that left. But I did pack up a bowl of Blue Dream this time. And, of course, now that I bought this vape with nicotine, I've been hitting this thing like a fucking chimpanzee hits the goddamn cocaine button in his experiment tank. It's good, though. I'm not going to say I'm not enjoying it. 3G. Wave cap. Oh, I got you. I think of it as my skull cap. Oh, nice. This is actually my concert T-shirt from 1988, the concert I went to. I've been watching that on YouTube, and man, again, the memories just take me back. It's a really good show. The way they produced it, as far as obviously being there, was a completely different experience. When you're watching the video of it, you're seeing, close-ups of people on stage, and you're seeing close-ups of the equipment, and all that kind of stuff. Whereas it's a film. It's not just you being in the audience. So obviously it was a different experience, but when it does pan back and it does show the whole audience and it shows the laser show and the pig flying through the air, and I was just like, oh fuck yeah. I remember so much being there. It was such a fucking intense experience and such a life moment that I just have carried with me forever. It was just such an awesome night. I'm still wearing the T-shirt. Lemonade haze. That sounds pretty good. You were 14. In 88, I was 16. No, 17? 16? I don't know. I was born in December of 71, so December of 88, I would have been 17. So maybe I was 16 when I went to that concert. God, was I that young? Shit, I must have been. The only other thing I could say would be that I might have been on the tail end of the tour. I saw them in Washington, D.C., and if the tour started in 88 and maybe like in the spring of 89 is when they got to D.C., possibly I was 17. But I think I was 16 when I saw them, now that I'm doing the math. God damn, I feel so old. I got to stop talking. Every time I talk about something, it just makes me feel older. All right, got 7 of you tonight. Big show. I never saw Roger Waters do The Wall, but I did see Roger Waters twice, and he did a lot of Pink Floyd music in his shows, but he also did a lot of his own solo stuff in his shows as well. But I saw Pink Floyd once, like the actual band without Roger Waters. It was the first show. It was the Delicate Sound of Thunder tour. It was the first show they did after Roger Waters left. So I didn't see the full Pink Floyd. I did see the post Roger Waters Pink Floyd. But I also saw Roger Waters twice as well. And both shows were par excellence, and both for their own reasons. Yeah, well, enjoy it while you can, Ark. It goes by fast. Oh, that sucks. I wonder what was wrong with it. There was no Floyd up here. Where are you? Oh, up in space. I think I want. Didn't they do like a wall tour, like on the Berlin Wall or something? I vaguely remember seeing something like that. And I vaguely remember watching some like wall thing that they did. It was a big TV extravaganza. Maybe that's what you're talking about. Had a bunch of guest musicians on it and whatnot. And I don't know. I wanted to listen to the Wall. I didn't want to listen to other people sing, songs from the Wall. I wanted to listen to the actual Wall. I just took one of those pothos plants that I took out of one of the other tanks, and I just threw it in the goldfish tank for the time being. It won't survive in there because they'll eat the shit out of it. My goldfish in the pond destroy that pothos plant in there. And we're going to stick with the flakes for this tank instead of the pellets tonight. And I do my best to get the flakes off the surface. I don't want the fancy goldfish gulping air from the surface. They have really short bodies, so the tube that goes from their, I guess you could call them their sinuses, down into their swim bladder, it's really short. Regular goldfish don't have so much of a problem. Like it's kind of like the equivalent of swallowing air. And if you get these little stubby, short, fancy goldfish doing that, and they swallow too much of it, it pushes the air down into their swim bladder, and you can get them stuck at the surface and having swim bladder issues. So every time I've fed these, I've always fed them with either sinking pellets, or I swirl the flakes around in the water enough to get them in the water column so that they're not gulping and smacking at the surface and getting air in their mouths. Wooders is definitely a legend. I mean, like, I don't know how many people think about it. I was talking about this today. The whole entire album of The Wall is just a big anti-fascist, anti-war album. He's always been an activist and spoken out for the downtrodden and whatnot. And as far as just, people's being genocided, that's a whole different fucking story. First date was with a Floyd concert. Holy shit. That's awesome. I was actually thinking about a date I went on last night. I don't know why I got to thinking about it, but man, it was just such a disastrous date. It was so bad. The Boys, Gen Z. Now, I've heard of it and I've heard how good it is, but I'm not much of a TV watcher or series watcher or whatever. I watch a lot of YouTube videos and stuff like that. But I've not been. I think the last thing I probably watched with any kind of interest and like followed along was like the fucking Sopranos or something like that. I read Game of Thrones. I didn't watch it. I only read the first book. I didn't enjoy it all that much. So I read the first book and I didn't read any further. Is there any other thing that I've watched of recently that's, no, I really can't think of anything. Yeah, like I say, I've certainly heard about it out of all the the podcasts and stuff I listen to. That the name of the show and the concept and stuff gets around. I heard a lot about the TV series Andor from Star Wars, and I did just cancel my Disney subscription today, so that'll show them. Justice served. They'll never recover. All right, at some point, I'm going to go get some hash oil so I can do some vaporizing as opposed to puffing on that bowl. Oh, I also ordered some e-liquid for like THC e-liquid for vape juice. And there were two different, I got kind of confused when I bought it. I'm still on the fence about what I'm actually getting. It did its usual disclaimer saying that it was Farm Bill compliant, and therefore, I mean, it was, legal. It was, less than 0.3% THC. And I was like, oh, well, that, I'm not interested in this. But then it also said, but it has Farm Bill legal. Remember, I was talking the other night about these loopholes they try to use just because it started out as something legal and you made it into something illegal doesn't make it legal. It's kind of one of those things. It says that it does have hemp-based Delta 9 THC, but it has no THC in it. So I don't know what the fuck that means, but it's 1,200 milligrams of THC in a 30 milligram bottle. And somebody can correct my math if I'm wrong, but I did the math, and 1,200 milligrams divided into 30 milliliters comes out to be 40 milligrams per milliliter, which would mean it's 40% THC. I know most people, when they're doing their vape cartridges or whatever, are up in the 80s and 90s percentage wise of THC. So this stuff will be pretty weak sauce compared to that. But if it is truly 40% THC, that'll be enough that I'll certainly get a buzz puffing off of it. It'll be nice for driving around with or whatever. Alien Earth, Octopus. Oh no, like I just said, I don't really watch any of that stuff. All right, let me get my algae wafers in there tonight. I don't know why my brain feels so scatterbrained tonight. I haven't felt really scatterbrained all day today. Now that we've gone live, I feel like I can't think straight. I guess for the last hour, I haven't really even been thinking about the live stream. I've been running around looking for that damn table leg because I wanted to do it with the live stream, but I didn't mentally sort of like prepare at all. I know you may not believe that, but I do usually spend an hour before going live, like sort of mentally preparing myself, thinking about what I'm going to talk about, or getting myself in the right mood. We may not talk about fish all night every night, but it's not just I don't just hit play and see what happens. I try to go into it with some kind of direction. But tonight I feel like I'm just kind of adrift with no rudder and very little wind. Yeah, we'll see how it works out. I watched a little bit of The Fly. Hey, Michael, how are you? I don't like horror movies to begin with, and I was a very sheltered kid. And The Fly was one of those first movies that was like an R-rated movie that I was watching when I was like 13. And it was at my friend's house, or my friend's dad let us do whatever the fuck we wanted. We drank, smoked weed, watched porn, etc. And so he put we went to the video store one night. We were all spending, me and a couple friends were all spending the night over there, and they got The Fly, and I didn't want to get The Fly because I don't like horror movies. And I got about a quarter of the way through Jeff Goldblum's transformation, and I was just too fucking freaked out by that. I sat in the kitchen the rest of the night while they watched the rest of the movie, and I've never gone back. I've never actually watched the movie, even as an adult. That was traumatizing for my little 13-year-old self. And so, no, I've never actually watched that movie, but I am familiar with it, and I've seen the original, of course. Well, it might be, but it's a hell of a lot more gory and graphic and fucking disgusting than Rocky Horror will ever be. No, that's just a common pleco as far as I know. Shamu always tries to tell me it's a golden something or other. I think it's just a common pleco, Trinidad pleco. I do have a clown pleco in this tank, and I just saw my chocolate zebra pleco up on the glass in my 125, and it was at the far end down by where the catfish is. So that must be the other one. We always see the one that's up by the end where I sit when I do the live streams. But the other one, there used to be 3 in there, and I think one died recently because I haven't seen 3 in there in a long time. Just the 2 that I do see from time to time. Oh, it's still out and about. Here, let me grab the camera, see if we can get a look at it real quick before it hides again. It's not on the glass. Well, it's trying to get on the glass. Bear with me here. You see it right there? That's a chocolate zebra pleco. And we don't seldom, I got one that lives kind of under that cave there. And if anybody's here that was asking me the other day about my black racer snail, if it's still in there, that's the black racer snail right there on the bottom. It's at a kind of an angle, so you can't really see how long it is. But it's about 3 inches long, maybe. And then that's the chocolate zebra pleco. If we come down here, there's the catfish. He doesn't come out very often either, but he's actually going to be out and about. He lives in that cave. We seldom see this fish either. I always say that I got more fish in this tank than you realize. That's, I put a lot of food in this tank. I've had people comment on that before, but I got that big Horkin catfish to feed. I've got the Siamese algae eaters that people don't think about. I've got those plecos in here that a lot of people don't necessarily see. And you can see that's a pretty good sized catfish now. It's not a little fish. And even these plecos, for as small as they are, they're short, but they're stocky. They got those really thick, wide heads, and they're meaty. So it's still a fair amount of bioload, and they still require a fair whack of food, even though they're a fairly small fish. They, of course, get a lot of their food from the tank itself, and so I don't need to go too far out of my way to make sure they get some. All right, we are also going to start this. Oops, sorry, dropped you for a minute there. We're going to start on this tank by getting some of that duckweed off the surface. And this duckweed I have been finding to have hair algae growing in it. You know what? It actually doesn't look like it's got any hair algae growing in it anymore. So we're going to get as much of this out as we can. And we start by gently corralling it. To one end. And drain off my elbow a little bit. But we got that much off of there. That's a lot of fucking duckweed in one scoop. And so we will put it over here. And I think we can call that good. I don't really think we need to go back in there. The surface was completely covered a minute ago, and now it looks like that. So I think we're good. I think I got enough out of there in that one fell swoop. Aha, you thought I was going to say swoop, didn't you? All right, if I can figure out which direction to turn the screw to unscrew it, we'll get you lowered back into position, and now you can actually see into the tank a little bit. Now we'll get some food in there for them once I dry my hands off. The yellowfish in that tank we were looking at, the 125, is the female albino millennium rainbow fish. The catfish, I'm going to say, is about 7 inches long. And I do not know what kind it is. I bought it as a Synodontis yateris, which is a African featherfin squeaker, but it is not an African featherfin squeaker. I used to have one of those, and I thought I was replacing it. And just by looking at its dorsal fin, which is where the term featherfin comes from, it's not that it had feathery fins, but the patterning and the markings on it actually kind of looked like a feather. And it was big and sweeping, and it did have sort of feathery trailing, can't think of the filaments coming off of it. And this one does not. It's got a really short, stubby little dorsal fin. I've had some, again, viewers tell me what they think it is, and I've looked it up, and some of them might have been right or not. I don't know. Again, for me, stuff like that's academic. I'd be able to tell you what it was if I knew, and then you'd know what it is. But does that change anything? I guess maybe if you wanted to buy one for yourself, you'd need to know what it was called. But otherwise, I don't care what it's called. I'm not, it's just a catfish. It's a Synodontis of some sort, but it's just a catfish in my tank. I'm not breeding it or anything like that, so I really don't need to know its deets. But I bought it as a Synodontis yateris or yateris, however you pronounce that. Yeah, the big pleco in the other 125, Daryl, is over 12 inches long now. Mike, how are you? You should be talking to my buddy there, Fishing Football. He's a big Alice in Wonderland. He's got a big fucking tattoo all the way up his arm of Alice in Wonderland. Yeah, banjos, you get them in there, and it's, yep, I've had fish like that. You think they're dead, or you forget about them altogether, and like, oh, yeah, there's that fish. I remember that was in there. The rainbow shark, I'm going to say, is between 5 and 6 inches. Is that a typo? Is that supposed to be platies, or is that Plato's? Because I don't know what a Plato is other than the philosopher. I'm assuming it's supposed to be platies. $60 a piece. That can't be platies. Although I've seen swordtails for $50 a piece. Yeah, I have seen those. Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead. Those are classics. Night of the Living Dead, the original, is just fucking great. The ending is awesome. Oh, I'd get a purple pleco, hell yeah, or a purple hillstream loach. I'd buy any purple fish as long as it was naturally purple and not made purple by dyeing it or injecting it with something. I'm even ethically okay with the glowfish. They're just genetically modified. You know, if you have an issue with the genetic modification and whether they get released into the wild, and you know, that's a different conversation. Ethically, it's not harm. Like it's no big deal to the fish. It's like, you know, having a kid born with red hair. It's just a different color hair because of his genes. Oh look, the two plecos are chasing each other. My two clown plec or chocolate zebra plecos I was just talking about. I wonder if they're going to try to mate. I've had them in there for fucking years. You'd think by now they'd have done something. You know, so once they made those gene modifications in that first batch of fish, and from then on, it's just that's their genetics, and so the fish are just born how they're born, and they just have that purple glow to them or blue glow or whatever. So again, ethically, I don't have any concern whatsoever about the glowfish. Environmentally, you know, that's a different argument, a different conversation, and frankly, I don't have much of an opinion on that either. I don't give a fuck. Ain't gonna hurt anything. It'd just be weird having them out in the wild. Yeah, that angelfish was a good score. I got it at the PetSmart. The only reason I think that's not a common pleco is because it's so small. Common plecos actually get big. They can get at 2 feet or more. The glow Cory cat, man, they're expanding. When I started keeping fish, the glowfish was brand new, and all they had was 3 colors of skirt tetras, and they were coming out with 2 more soon. And of course, by the next spring, they had the final 2 of the 5 colors out with the skirt tetras. And the next one I think they came out with was barbs, and then I saw they started doing glow sharks. I don't know. I might get a glow angelfish if they made them. Blue tiger barbs, that would neat. Select pet. Well, I say like having a kid with red hair in the terms of it's just genetically there. He just has red hair because of his genes. So there's nothing damaging to the fish. They're not being tortured to make them purple. They're just born purple. It's just in their genes now. That's all I meant by that. I know they're splicing in like jellyfish glow, you know, fluorescent jellyfish genes and shit like that. That's why I said after that initial batch of fish that's been genetically modified, after that, they're just born that way, and that's just the color they are. And it's, you know, the dyed fish and the stained fish and stuff like that. Every single individual stained fish is tortured. You know, every single dyed fish is tortured. It's not like you do it to one and then from then on they're all blue. You have to dye every single one blue, and that's a 50% survival rate in the process. It's a terrible process. So that's the difference I was talking about. I'm not worried ethically about the genetics of just being born with red hair or being born with blue scales, but having your slime coat stripped off your body and then soaked in a dye for an hour to change your body color and hoping you survive the process is something completely different. There are glow angels? Holy crap, I didn't know that. It's been years since I've been in a damn fish store. Oh, that's interesting, Mike. I just assumed they'd all come out with that. Maybe it's a recessive gene. Winston, how are you? I don't think blue gouramis would get 8 inches. I would say 6. But definitely, I can't imagine a blue gourami getting 8 inches. And I assume when you say a blue gourami, you're talking about the Trichopodes. Is it Trichopodes, Trichopterus? I can't remember anymore. They changed the name, and it's been so long since I've looked into them. No, I think the Trichopodes trichopterus is the snake skin. Anyway, the blue gourami is the 3-spot gourami, is what that, if you get a lavender gourami or an opaline gourami, like all of those are just color morphs of the 3-spot gourami. So I'm assuming a blue gourami is that. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, is your standard 3-spot. And they can get up to about 6 inches or so. The females tend to be a little smaller, but I've had some males that got pretty big. Ready now. How are you? Oh, I didn't even think about that either. It's not like you're breeding two glowfish together. You're breeding the glowfish with something else. Yeah, I don't like seeing pet stores sell them, and I tend not to patronize pet stores that sell them. I like the mystery snails better, just in the way they look and whatnot. But the nearite snails are your go-to if you're looking for something that's going to damage algae. They'll eat cyanobacteria. Nearite snails are really good. And for the question about the black algae on the plants, nearite snails might make a pretty good dent in that. Shrimp would be a certainly good option, but you already said they've got a start on it. Um, so I would try getting some nearite snails for that. Or personally, I think the black algae, if it's the black beard algae, if that's what you're talking about, I like black beard algae. I think it looks good, unless it's getting so overgrown that it's actually like hindering the growth of your plants and stuff like that. I would just leave it there and enjoy it, me personally. But I mean, if you are trying to get rid of it, then I would say nearite snails maybe. I don't think Siamese algae eater would eat the black beard algae. All right, let's try to get you a better camera angle. There you go. It's a little less glare on it anyway. Bob, we were talking about you on Wednesday. Wondering where you were. Yeah, that's the other thing I was going to say about the dyed fish or the painted fish. They have like a 50% success rate of surviving the process. Out of the ones that survive, they have a very low survival rate during shipment and receiving. And then if you finally do get one from the pet store that survived all the way to there, when you take it home, it's going to have a seriously reduced life. It's not going to live a full, healthy life after it's gone through all that torture. So don't ever buy the dyed or stained fish. It's fucked up. I'm puffing on a bowl myself, Winston. I got some Blue Dream tonight. Bob's SAE does graze on black beard algae, but doesn't eliminate it. So maybe in combination of the two, you could get rid of it with the shrimp, between the shrimp and the Siamese algae eater. Yeah, I believe it. I wouldn't imagine they went through all that process to produce a product like that without trademarking the product. Every single plant I purchase says that it's illegal to propagate asexually. Now, I take that to mean that I can't, that's not so much for me. That's like the tag on the mattress, do not tear off under penalty of law. That's for the mattress seller. That's not for the consumer. Once you buy the mattress, you can do whatever the fuck you want with that tag. And so that's the way I've always looked at it when it says these plants or it's illegal to propagate this plant asexually. That's because, nurseries and stuff or stores that sell plants will buy a few very easy to propagate type plants and then just make a bunch of cuttings from them and sell 10 times the amount that they actually purchased. That's something they're not legally allowed to do. If I purchase one of those plants and bring it home and I want to make cuttings to put in my garden, I don't know how the fuck anybody's going to possibly regulate that or stop me from doing it or anything else. So it's illegal, like you said, to make money off of it. You can't propagate them. Like I couldn't make cuttings of stuff and then sell it down on the street on the little, roadside table with the plant bouquets and stuff like that. That would be illegal. I'm not sure what kind of algae the hillstream loaches will eat. Green spot algae, almost. I don't know if anything eats green spot algae or not. But that stuff is like fucking green paint. You need a razor blade to scrape it off the glass. So I'm not sure what to tell you on that one. Here, Nubius has a black mohawk. Nice. You went to bed early. We were talking about your idea of the reaction videos. Oh, you're quite welcome. I hope the nearite snails work out for you. And like I said, if you just sort of adjust the way you think about it and don't think about it as being some terrible thing in your aquarium and just simply see it as part of the aquatic environment, as long as it's not harming your plants or restricting their growth or whatever, just go ahead and enjoy it. It's neat looking stuff. Are you asking me, Michael, if I like all natural things in my aquariums, like plants and live ornaments and whatnot? I would imagine you wouldn't have to ask me that, but yes, I do prefer everything live and natural. I even collect my own rocks and woodwork. I've got all live plants. I've always had all live plants since day one, and I've never had an aquarium except for one or two experimental specific aquariums, but I've never had an aquarium that didn't have at least some kind of plant growing in it. I can't imagine any, and I'm not counting algae, which technically isn't a plant anyway. But you just don't ever see aquatic environments that don't have shit growing in them. There's just that weird. Well, I guess sometimes you do, but that weird sterile sort of look without any plants in the tank is just sort of odd to me. It doesn't look natural if it doesn't have greenery in there somewhere. All right, flying foxes for the. Yeah, I was kind of wondering about the live decor too. I didn't really live ornaments. I wasn't sure what you meant by that. I was thinking maybe like moss balls or something. No, the stuff I'm talking about is stuff like when you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or something and you buy one of the Endless Summer brands or Proven Winners. If you buy anything that says Proven Winner on it, I guarantee if you read the label, it will say that it is illegal to propagate this plant illegally. They all do. If you're buying a plant that's being sold by a manufacturing nursery like Proven Winners or Endless Summer or something like that, they've trademarked those plants. You can't, or I can, like I said, I can plant them around my yard and whatnot. But you can't, if you're Home Depot, you can't make cuttings and make your own plantings and sell them. Or if you're a little mom and pop nursery, you can't buy 30 of them and then make a bunch of cuttings and sell 50. You can only sell the ones you purchase. Oh yeah, if you've got a plant with a tank outs or outdoors with sun shining on it, I mean, I put a lot of light on my aquariums. I have very, very brightly lit aquariums by aquarium standards, but they're a piece of piss compared to how much energy is getting dumped into a pond or a tank or something by the sun. The sun probably puts more energy into a tank in 5 minutes than my lights do all day long. All right, let's throw some wafers, or crisps rather, in here. And I'm just going to throw some algae wafers in for the the striped Raphael down there, but that striped Raphael's fat enough. He's getting plenty of food. I don't need to put anything special in there for him. Yeah, goldfish will tear up algae. Goldfish will probably eat hair algae. Oh, that's all right. I'm standing here reading along while we watch. Like I said, we're not going to be doing anything tonight because I never could find those damn table legs. I don't know where the fuck I put them. It was the remaining 3 shelves and 12 legs that went with it, and I put them all, stacked them all together, and ran tape all around it. And so it's in one big black plastic stacked up bundle. It's not the kind of thing you can easily just like stash in a cabinet somewhere and forget about. And I mean, I've looked all over the place down here. Maybe it's outside in my shed. Maybe I put it out there, but I don't remember putting it out there. I thought I remembered where I put it, and that's the first place I went to checking, assuming I was just going to see it there, and it wasn't there. So I looked around, couldn't find it anywhere on a preliminary search. So I asked my wife, and she's like, "I have no fucking idea where you put that thing." She vaguely remembered me bringing it home. You know, she doesn't pay too much attention to my aquarium stuff, but she vaguely remembers me saying something about having some plastic racks in the basement if she ever needed them for laundry racks or something. But obviously she had no idea where I actually put them, and apparently neither do I. Damn it! I don't know why I'm walking in here like I'm going to suddenly see him sitting on the floor. I'm vaping on my nicotine and my head's starting to spin a little bit, so maybe I'm disoriented. Debating whether or not I should eat my mushroom chocolate bar, and drink my mushroom syrup tonight, or whether I should take a break from it. No, you're just talking about taking the shroom liquid. Yeah, I drank some of the shroom juice on Wednesday during the live stream, and the idea was I drank it about 9:15, figuring by around 10 o'clock, as it was rolling on to me, I could go ahead and just end the live stream and enjoy the rest of the evening. But I wound up chatting and talking. Of course, it puts you in a really good mood, and you're laughing, and I think it was almost 11 o'clock by the time I finally went off, finished the live stream. And I definitely, talk. I get just religion is just one of those things I don't want to talk about. Whatever my opinions are, whatever your opinions are, doesn't matter to me. And I usually just keep that stuff to myself. But I got asked a question that I should have just kind of blown the answer off and left it at that. But nope, I decided I was going to vent, and I ranted about religion for about 5 solid minutes. And then I realized, like, I should stop talking about this shit now. And so you got to be careful when you take certain drugs. They tend to make your mouth run more than it should. But it was also the members live stream, and I tend to be a little more open on my members live stream. I think there was 5 people watching or something like that. So I don't think it was that big a deal. And I didn't say anything that I, regret necessarily. But again, it's just one of those topics I'd rather not discuss, and probably shouldn't have, but whatever. I get such a buzz off this nicotine. I feel like I don't even need to hit on my damn bowl anymore. Well, you say it's all good, but you weren't there for the you didn't hear what I said. Which is good. I wonder where Zini is tonight. I'm going to shoot him a text. So I've got about, I don't know, just less than a quarter bottle of the mushroom juice left, the syrup. And if I took that, it would be a low-grade buzz. I like to do about a full third of a bottle. So less than a quarter of a bottle would be a little unsatisfying. But I also have that chocolate bar, so I'm thinking I might eat 3 pieces of chocolate and then drink the syrup, and then that'll leave me 12 pieces of chocolate for later. I can do 6 and 6. I've done as many as 8 pieces at one time, and 8 was probably a little much. It wasn't bad, but it was just kind of unnecessary. 6 is plenty. You know, it's a weird experience. Once you start getting up to a certain point, you just kind of get buzzier and buzzier, and it doesn't necessarily get better. It just gets more. You know, so once you get to that point where it's like really good, you just stay there. You know, don't just keep adding to it, because it doesn't make it better necessarily. So that sweet spot of around a third of a bottle of syrup, or about 6, to 6 to 7 servings is just about right for that mushroom stuff. Hang on, I'm sending a text here. Or a DM on the Discords. So if you're not already a member of the channel, you just heard me mentioning the Wednesday members live stream. That's one thing you'll get as being a member. Another thing you will get by joining membership is access to the Discord server I just mentioned. And it's only $2.99 a month. So that's a pretty good deal if you enjoy my live streams and that sort of thing. Now, if you watch closely, you'll notice I have my disco ball on. If you watch that angelfish in there, if it catches the light just the right way, you get some really neat reflections off of that angelfish. All right, let me get you. I got a lamp in the way. I can't see my monitor, so I can't see what you're actually looking at and how the camera's angled. There you go. I know there's a lot of glare on this tank. It's kind of hard to look at, but do your best. I have to turn a bunch of lights out. So you can, well, there you go. You can see right now how the angelfish lights up when the disco lights hit him. All right, I'm going to run in the other room and get my other tank fed. And, well, I'll say I'll be right back, but I always forget I'm mic'd up so I can keep talking while I walk over here. You don't even know I've left the room, do you? We are 3 days now into my flowering process on my mushroom bag. I checked yesterday to see if I could see anything happening, and it's a little, I don't even see like the pins. When they first start growing, the mycelium looks like a cake, and then you'll see these little, they look like little pinheads starting to develop all over it. And of course, those all grow up into full-size mushrooms eventually. But they call it pinning when it first starts, and you can see all those little spikes all over it. I couldn't see those yet, but they say it takes about a week to see those, and today is only day 3. So I wasn't expecting to see much after 2 days of flowering process. 50-cent ice cream, nice. Yeah, you definitely get a nice effect off of 3 or 4 doses. That's for sure. The first time I did it, I ate 3 pieces of the chocolate, and it was my first experience with it, so it was really, it was a nice experience. I really enjoyed it, and then of course I started experimenting with more and more. And like I said, I got to the point where I think about 6 to 7 is my sweet spot for where I like to be. What year am I going to put a larger tank for the goldfish? Possibly 2026, maybe 27. All right, ready? We will see you later. I am going to take my skull cap off because I forgot I was wearing it. If you ever see me wearing my skull cap, it's about a 99% likelihood it's because I was working out before I went live. I wear that to keep the sweat out of my eyes. If I'm not wearing the skull cap, it doesn't mean I didn't work out. I don't always put it on when I work out, but if I am wearing it, then it's a almost certainty that I work out. And I actually did work out a little bit tonight for the first time in several weeks. It feels like I did a bunch of sit-ups, and I'm going to feel them tomorrow. Remember, when I do sit-ups, I hold 20 pounds up over my head, and then do sit-ups holding 20 pounds above my head. So I do serious sit-ups, and I pay for it the next day. But, you know, it's no accident that I look like this. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. You're probably not here anymore, but thanks anyway. Well, I know that my koi are eventually going to outgrow my pond I've got here in the basement too. They're getting big already, so I don't know what I'm going to do with that. My long-term plan is to dig my little pond out back. It's a small preformed plastic pond, and it only holds 125 gallons, and I've got rocks and stuff in the bottom. So it's so shallow that the first year I had it out there, we had a real cold snap for about a week, and it froze solid all the way to the bottom. I can't afford to put a fucking heater in an outdoor tank during the winter. I mean, we'd be just cranking electricity into that thing, trying to keep a liquid spot in the middle. Not going to worry about all the aeration and air stones and all that kind of stuff. I just need to get hey Quaz, I just need to get a deeper pond. I need something that's 3.5 or 4 feet deep in the bottom in the middle area that won't freeze, and then the goldfish will be able to stay in that, and I'll be able to overwinter fish there. But right now, I could put fish in there in the summer, but I got to find some place to do with them at the end of the season because I can't overwinter them. So this year I didn't put any plants. I mean, I didn't put any fish at all in the pond outside just because I didn't want to have to deal with them at the end of the season. We're just treating it more like a water feature than an actual pond. And it's got frogs in it. It's got water skimmers on the surface, and the birds go and the squirrels drink out of it, and the cats drink out of it. And it's nice having it out there. We can hear the splashing water and see the running water coming down the waterfall and everything. It just doesn't have any fish in it. So I looked into expanding it last year. I would need a really large liner to line, the pond. I would dig it out, manually, and then just lay a liner in it. And for the size I need and the depth I need, I was looking at $400 or $500 for a liner. I can't afford that kind of money. I got so many debts and bills, and I got to get my truck fixed, and I got to get my teeth fixed. There's a lot of things I got that are prioritized over spending, $500 on a pond. So we'll see what happens. At some point, I'm going to have to do something. I mean, worst case scenario, I can always, take them down to House of Tropicals or, get rid of them somewhere. It's not like I'll be stuck with them, but I don't want to get rid of them, especially if I've had them for so long that they've gotten big enough that, they're outgrowing my indoor pond. I definitely want to be able to put those koi somewhere that I can keep them. The goldfish I can leave in here. Even the biggest of the big goldfish will be fine in here, when they grow up, but the koi are definitely going to outgrow it. Yeah, that's why I say like 3.5, something like that. I would go just to be sure. And if you're in New Hampshire and 3 feet is deep enough, then it would certainly be deep enough for me down here in Maryland. I'll take the high part, but I'll leave the drunk out of it. I started leaving the drunk out of it about 13 years ago. But I swear, since I'm vaping on this nicotine, I don't hit my weed nearly as much anymore. My head's usually swimming around from the nicotine. All right, there's a puff of weed for you. All right, it's almost 9 o'clock already. Let's move on to the next tank. So this tank is the one that I just installed the light in the front, so when we're looking at it, we can do that and actually see in there. And then when we're not looking at it, I can turn it off, and that'll help us reduce all that algae that grows all over that front glass like that. At some point, I'll get in there and do a big water change. We got to get the duckweed cleared out of this tank too. It's getting a little overgrown with duckweed. You can see it there from the underside looking up. You see all the roots floating around. So it's not covering the surface yet, but the far side, the left-hand side over here is there's a lot of duckweed on that side that you can't see. It's caught up on the anubias. It's not swirling around with the rest of it. It just piles up in that corner. So there's a fair amount we need to get out of there. I need to gravel back all the superficial. I don't like scrunch down into the gravel, but I got a lot of stuff on the surface that needs to get skimmed off. And then once we get the, front glass cleaned off once and for good, as long as I keep that forward light off most of the time, we shouldn't have too much issues with that glass getting so manky like that. All right, let me see here. £3? No, you'll be all right. You're going to have some serious stomach cramps. God, I couldn't imagine the stomach cramps you'd get from eating that much mushroom. Not to mention the psychedelic impact you'd have. The surface is moving. There's not enough duckweed. Well, I have the spray bar in there hitting, so the stuff that gets swirled around definitely piles up in that one corner, like I said. I was the whole thing that got me on this mushroom kick that I've been on lately was a friend of mine gave me some mushrooms he had. I mentioned something about mushrooms. He's like, I got some mushrooms if you want them. And I was like, fuck yeah, I want them. And so I never did like a really serious dose where I was like really, when I say tripping, you got to see like shit bending and colors changing and stuff like that. That's what I mean when I say tripping. I never got anywhere near that level of, I've eaten a quarter ounce of mushrooms before. This wasn't anything like that. I was eating like 1.5 or 2 grams or making tea out of it and drinking it, which is much more effective, by the way. And so I had some really nice experiences with it, but I got a really therapeutic effect from it too. It really made me feel better in a lot of ways. It really helped with my ADHD. It helped with my depression. I really felt good when I was taking those small doses of mushrooms over a period of a couple of weeks. And then when I ran out of them, I started looking around online trying to find where I could buy some. And I wound up finding this mushroom syrup and this company, Treehouse, that sells these mushroom products. And it's not psilocybin, which I didn't know at the time. I thought it was when I bought it. So it's a completely different experience than a real mushroom trip. It's not psilocybin, but whatever they've put in it, whatever it is, it's a really nice experience. I really enjoy it. So I've been using that while I've been trying to grow my own psilocybin. And I'm hoping once I got my own real mushrooms, I can lay off of this expensive ass, chocolate and syrups and maybe do that as a treat once in a while. But I really want to experiment with doing more of these mushrooms again. I do want to have a nice, good, solid trip one sunny afternoon or something. But for the most part, I'm much more concerned about doing, maybe not micro dosing. To me, a micro dose is a dose that you don't know you've taken. It's so small that you don't really even feel the effects of it. It's doing stuff in your brain, but you're not feeling like you're on mushrooms. I definitely feel like I'm on mushrooms, and I got a big grin on my face and everything. So it's not a micro dose necessarily, but it's a small dose. It's like the buzz equivalent of a trip. And again, just very, very therapeutic for me. I was really surprised the effect that had. All right, getting on to Gilgalad's tank. This is my half moon betta fish tank, and I think he is going to be dead soon. He's been acting really strange the last few days. He hasn't been coming out to feed. When he does come out, he doesn't actually just feed. It's like he tries to swim, but he has like spasms and swims really fast across the tank instead of where the food is. I can see him down there in the, you see that little blue spot right there next to the rock down in the weeds? That's either his body or it's him. And we'll see if we can get him to come out for feeding time. Usually when I make noise in the corner of the tank, he comes right up. Nope, he wiggled, so he's still alive. I don't know if he can wiggle his way out or if he's wiggling his way deeper in. There he goes. And see, now that he's out, he'll watch him sort of just dart and dash around the tank like that instead of feeding. See how he's just doing those quick bursts like that? He normally goes right up into the corner and just starts feeding, and now he's doing all this weird swimming around the tank. So betta fish don't last long, and I've had him at least for a couple of years now, I think. Again, time gets all mushed up for me, but I've had him for quite a while, and it's not. I've actually commented on how surprised I am that he's lived as long as he has. I was expecting to get a year or two out of him, maybe. So we'll see. I've seen enough fish come and go over the years. Trust me. When I say I've got a feeling a fish is on its way out, I'm seldom wrong. Shirley. All right, let me see where I was. Let's see. You ever going to try again the bumblebee catfish? No, I will definitely. That's on my list of fish I'll never have again is the bumblebee. They hide all the time, and when they come out, they just sort of dart around. They eat other fish, and I don't know. I just didn't have good experiences with my bumblebees. I didn't enjoy the time having them. I don't dislike them per se, but they're not a fish that I would want in my tank. If I'm going to put a fish to fill that niche of like a bottom dwelling fish, there's far more fish I would prefer than a bumblebee catfish. If you're looking for something different that you don't see in everybody's tank, they're a cool fish for that, certainly. Yeah, I've never even been fly fishing. Thank you for the stop sign there. Fly fishing is one of those things that, like, how do you do it? Like, how do you learn how to fly fish without going out and buying a bunch of fucking, expensive equipment? Or even if you're buying your first cheapie, like fly rods and reels and stuff aren't cheap. The Bass Pro Shops near me a couple times a year will do seminars where you can go down there and they'll, go out. I guess they have like in the parking lot out back or something, and they'll do seminars to show you how to do it and like teach you beginner type stuff, which is good business for them because you get people interested in a little bit, and then they go inside and buy they're excited about it, and they go buy a rod and reel to try to learn fly fishing. But I've never had the opportunity to learn to fly fish, and so it looks like it's a lot of fun, and it would be awesome in a kayak. I mean, out in the open water, nothing overhead, no trees or anything. You could do all kinds of fly fishing out there on the kayak. I would I'd have to start by buying all the equipment and learning how to do it. And I don't know, just never bothered. Yeah, bass will tear up them spinners. Oh, the gulper catfish are crazy. They eat fish that are like twice their own size. Yeah, betta fish will definitely rest on the plant leaves or they'll rest on the bottom. They prefer to rest higher up in the water, but I have seen him resting on the bottom. He used to live in this cave down here. He would always, whenever I would swish my finger around to let him know it was dinner time, he'd come swimming out of that cave and up to, get his dinner. So he's definitely not behaving normally now, and he just keeps suspending himself in the Java moss, like while he's in the water sprite now. But he's been spending a lot of time just laying in the Java moss, so I think he's dying. I don't think he's going to be here for much more than a few more days, maybe. So I'll probably replace him. I was actually thinking about that the other day, getting myself another betta fish and getting like a really pretty fancy one and putting it in there. This is my first betta fish. I'd never had one before. And I was always reluctant to. They just never seemed like a kind of fish I'd want. I never thought they had personality or anything, because every one I've ever seen has been sitting in a little bowl or a cup or something, stupid like that. And you just don't get the feel for, how it acts like a fish. You put it in an environment where it can swim around like a fish, and suddenly it's a very different kind of animal. And it turns out they got loads of little personality in them little guys. So I really enjoy my betta fish. I got another one for my office tank. It was a plaquette, and that one lived about a year, and that one's already gone. So I got that after this one, and that one's already gone, and this one's still alive. So even though it is on its way out, it did live kind of a long time, I think, for a betta fish. I've had people tell me they've had betta fish live, 5 years before, 4 years, something like that. But I think that's a rare, um, occurrence, and that's of course just assuming that when the people that told me that were telling the truth, we're not exaggerating. Got a lotus flower in there that's kind of trying to open up. It'll probably open overnight. It'll be open tomorrow, but by Sunday it'll probably be gone. They only last a day. At least this species do. We have three more lotus flowers in the pond outside. And when they opened, I really expected last time we got a bunch of them come up, and I expected them to die off in a day or so. And we got several days out of them. They acted like a normal flower. They closed up at night and they opened back up again the next day. And I don't know, 3 or 4 days worth of flower, like a real normal flower would last. The red tiger lotus that I've gotten here, it blooms and it's open for 12 hours or something, and it fades away and it's gone. You just like those lotus flowers do not last. So maybe the one I have in the pond out back is so it's a cultivar. It's a cultivated water lily. I paid $45 for it. It's got really small pads on it with red spots all over it. Then it's got this gorgeous pink and white and yellowy sort of flower to it. I got it at a nursery, and the year we put it in, it didn't do much. Just a few leaves came out, and then by the end of the season, they were like those were dying off. And I thought, well, that was a waste of $45. I just assumed it died off and wasn't going to survive the winter. And this spring, lo and behold, I had little lily pads starting to pop up, and the pads have almost covered the pond now. And like I said, I've gotten several batches of flowers coming out. They bloom, they look beautiful. So I'm very happy with my $45 lily pads out there because they survived. So presumably they did well enough this year that it'll, it's established. And from now on, I'll be getting those flowers every year. The old Magna fishing game from the 70s? No, I don't remember that. Hey, May. I'm assuming that's May. Not sure how that's pronounced. Depends on what kind of fish you have. There are some kinds of fish where you just can't have plants because they dig them up. Any fish in the Geophagus family, the geos are just known as earth eaters. They dig up sand and filter it through their gills and get the food out of it, and they will just dig up anything. And then of course you've got other fish that will eat your plants and tug on them and chew on the leaves and pull them up out of the ground as they're trying to bite them and stuff like that. So I don't know what kind of fish you have, but it sounds like the tank you've got set up just isn't really going to work for having plants in it. Yeah, I'd like to get one of those electric blue Acaras. I've never had one of those. I do have that Geo in my 125 now, my other 125, not the one you're looking at. It was given to me by a viewer that was moving or needed to downsize or whatever. I don't remember his reasoning anymore, but he gave me the male out of he had three of them, two females and a male. And he called it a pearl cichlid, which I can see why it's called a pearl cichlid. It's just got every single scale down its body. It looks like an individual pearl. It's gorgeous. And it's just now starting to put on some size and grow into its adult size. So it should get about 7 or 8 inches when it's full grown. And I'm really looking forward to that. I've, never had I guess my tilapia is a little bit exotic, but it's not flashy, and it's a female, so the colors are a bit muted. I've never had like a big male, vibrant cichlid in any of my tanks before. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that pearl cichlid turns out to be. But when I looked up pearl cichlid, it's a geophagus something or other. I can't remember what it actually is, but it's a geo. So I now have my own earth eater in there, and we'll find out as time goes on what he does in that tank. Now I don't have any. I do have plants in that tank, but they're not planted into the substrate, so he can dig all he wants, and it's not going to bother the plants in that tank. I'm not worried about that. That is a Siamese algae eater, and if you're talking about the one in this tank. Well, I saw something about a rock bass going by. Rock bass would be a good fish to have, too. They're cool. All right, let me come around there and sit down. Let me go grab my bone. And I think I'm going to grab my mushroom juice and chocolate bar, too. We can decide whether I'm going to eat that or not when I get in there. But if I'm carrying it in here, that's a pretty good chance we already know the outcome of that decision. Ooh. All right, that's my mushroom juice. It's actually full because I topped it off with water. It makes it easier to drink. It's a really, really thick syrup. So I measured it out, and the syrup was about, I don't know, that much in the bottle. Like I say, just about a quarter of the bottle, maybe a little less than a quarter of the bottle. And I topped it off, but I also have my handy dandy chocolate bar here. Hey, there you go. Now you can see it. I know you think that says milk chocolate because when you glance at it, that's what your brain says, but it's actually chocolate milk. Chocolate milk is the flavor. You can get peanut butter, cookies and cream, one other flavor that I can't think of, maybe like a caramel or something, and then there's chocolate milk. So it really is just milk chocolate. But it's a really milky milk chocolate. It's creamy and smooth. I've said it before, like this is really good chocolate. It's actually on par with the quality of something like Cadbury. And then, of course, it packs that fucking wallop that it packs. Again, I don't know what is actually in it. I've looked up what's in it, and there's nothing that specifically indicates a psychotropic drug, but it clearly has psychotropic effects. So something in there is having some kind of psychotropic impact. It's really good stuff. I really like it a lot. All right, I got my bone, I got a lighter, I got my weed. Yeah, the way they put that label on there, I immediately thought they do that deliberately so you can't quite see how much you've consumed and you go through it a lot faster. So I peel the label off, and then that way I can see how much liquid's in the bottle. But what I actually do, this bottle, the glue always sticks on the bottle when you peel the labels off. So I've got one bottle that I cleaned off. I got all the glue off of it, and this is my measuring bottle. So I take my regular bottle and then I pour how much I want into this one so I can see exactly how much I've got, and then I top it off with water, and then I can just drink it that way. So I saved this. This is my permanent measuring bottle, and then my actual bottle of juice is in the other room. Although it's not because it's empty now. It's all in that. But I do have the bottle with the label on it if you guys want to see what the label looks like or if you haven't seen it yet. Yeah, I've never done one of the Caros before. I do like the electric blue Caros. They are a gorgeous fish. No, actually, Steve has not had the chocolate or the mushroom syrup yet. We were supposed to get together on Saturday and go out on the or Sunday and go out on the reservoir for a while, and he wasn't able to make it for other reasons. But I told him, I was like, I'm saving a chocolate bar for us. We can split it. You know, you can have 7 pieces and I'll eat 8, and you know we'll have a day of it. And he's like, I'll pass on the chocolate bar. So he wasn't interested. He didn't seem to want to try it or not. I like Corydoras. I don't know if it's my water, but I don't have a lot of luck with the Corys, so I've kind of leaned away from buying them. But I always enjoy the Corys. I do like them a lot. I would weigh it. First of all, every mushroom is going to be different. There's no guarantee that each mushroom has the same amount of psilocybin in it. And so you really never know what you're going to get. One mushroom might be more potent than the next or whatever. So always keep that in mind. But it's still going to be your best option is to weigh it out and do it by the gram. You might want to take 1 or 2 grams, anything more than 2 grams, and you're getting up into where you're going to start, genuinely tripping, like an eighth, 3.5 grams. That's a pretty sizable dose. And you go beyond that and you're definitely going to be tripping. So I was doing up to about 2 grams. And again, it was on the cusp of there, but I wasn't there. If I'd have done another gram on top of that, I'd have probably been there. But still on the low end of there. Like I said, I've eaten a 1/4 ounce of mushrooms before, and I've had some pretty intense mushroom experiences, and I haven't even gotten into that neighborhood yet. So I would measure it. I would weigh it. No, I've never had the golden Chinese algae eater. I only ever had one Chinese algae eater, and I had a bad experience with it, so I've never done another Chinese algae eater. I know why the camera. There we go. I don't know why I had the camera so close to my face like that. There we go. Now you can actually see a little more of me in the tank. I had the camera sitting like right here for some reason. Oh wow, that's cool. I've had the salt and pepper before, and I've had the emerald cories. Have a mild amount of success with emerald cories. I like the lasers, the orange lasers, but they're like $50 a piece. They're expensive. uh, False Julii. I think I had the Julii too, now that you mention it, way back in the early days. But again, it's been so long since I've really kept cories. I just don't really think I had a lot of luck with them. And I just kind of, any fish that for some reason they never seem to last long, rather than try to figure out what it is, I just don't get that fish anymore. Kind of the same thing with plants. My philosophy with plants is that I put them in my tanks. If they do well, great. If they don't, then I just don't have that plant in my tank. I'm not doing anything special. I'm not putting root tabs in there. I'm not altering my water chemistry or having to add nutrients or anything like that. If they can't just live in my fish tank, then they're not going to be in my fish tank. And it's kind of the same way with fish. If I have a fish that I like, the German blue rams is a perfect example. I've tried so many German blue rams that at this point I just feel guilty buying them because I know they're going to fucking die. I don't know why they're going to die. I've tried different tanks. I've tried different environments. I cannot keep a blue ram. I think the longest I've ever kept a German blue ram alive was about 9 months, and I was getting really excited, and then it died. So I just don't buy them anymore. It's just, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to try to figure it out. It's not any kind of mystery that's keeping me up at night. I just can't keep those kind of fish. They don't do well in my water. I can chalk it up to that. Just simply saying they don't do well in my water. And I just don't keep those kind of fish anymore, All right, where was I? There it was. Yeah, orange lasers are expensive. They may not be $50, but they're, probably 25 or $30 for a single fish. Five nights in Florida. All right. I've had a few freshwater gobies. I don't think they're much in the way of algae eaters. At least the ones I had weren't. Well, I'm talking like over time. If I, over a 2-year period, if I've tried to keep the GBRs, 4 times, I've gotten them from different places, and I've bought the more expensive ones because I bought some expensive ones. The last batch I bought were $25 GBRs from the House of Tropicals rather than the $5 ones from PetSmart. I bought one of each actually, and the $5 one outlived the $25 one. I don't keep German blue rams anymore, and that's just not a fish I'm even going to try. Yeah, I've never had a bad trip on LSD, but I've had a bad trip on mushrooms. Only one, but it was a bad trip, and it was on mushrooms. $22 for the orange lasers, right? That sounds about right. You tried root tabs and they still died. Shirley, I thought you said something about renting an algae eater. You can try it, give it a shot, get them from a different supplier, or, if it's obviously you're talking about if you think it was one particular batch and not necessarily an issue with a certain supplier, I'd give it a shot again, see what happens. If it just still doesn't work out after you try it again, then maybe don't worry about it. I know everybody tries to say, that all life is important and all that kind of stuff, and that's fine up to a certain extent. But a fish does not have the same value of life to me as like a human child does by any stretch of the imagination. So when thinking about fish, I don't necessarily want to kill them or see anything bad happen to them. But at the same time, if I buy fish and I'm not sure whether they're going to live or not, and then they don't, I don't feel all that guilty about it. I don't like doing that, but I'm not going to lose sleep over the fact that, I bought a fish that I wasn't sure whether I was going to be able to keep it or not. And it turns out it didn't work out and it died. Whatever. You know how many fucking fish die every day just in the PetSmart alone or wherever. It's just not one of those things I worry too much about. So I would give it a shot again, me personally. Just to find out. If for no other reason, I'd try them 2 or 3 times just to find out. Yeah, sure enough, every single time I try this fish, they die. Now that I'm sure of that, I won't buy this fish anymore. But up until I know it's a real issue with that fish, and it wasn't a bad one that I bought originally, and then the next time there was an issue with the tank, there's so many variables that might cause a fish to die. I don't just make the assumption that if I bring fish home once and they die within a few months, I'm not keeping that fish anymore. There's just too many variables involved in that. But if I've tried that fish 3 times over a period of 2 years and every single time it dies after a month, all right, I'm not buying that fish anymore, All right. Stuck in your reflection. That's awesome. TK, how are you? Well, I hope it works out for you. If it makes you feel better, if they do die, you can blame me. I don't care. Yeah, I don't have a lot of luck with mollies either. I've got really soft water, and I know that mollies prefer harder water, and I've got really soft water. In fact, I got a water softener. I have such soft water. I add minerals back to my tank just to keep them from crashing. It would be like trying to keep African cichlids in my water. They're a fish that prefers harder water, and they're not going to do well in my tanks. I've never even tried to keep an African cichlid in my tanks. Let me see. Mollies love brackish water. You can do mollies all the way up into salt water. They prefer hard water to low end brackish. Remember, all fish that are euryhaline, and euryhaline is what most people would refer to as a brackish fish. The brackish talks about the environment, not the animal. So there's no such thing as a brackish fish. There are fish that can live in brackish water, And those fish are typically referred to as euryhaline. Now, surprisingly, a lot of euryhaline fish don't live in brackish water, like bass, sunfish, all the fish you find anywhere here in Maryland along the coast, up in the rivers. All of those fish can swim out into tidal water, and you can catch bass and sunfish um, out in the Chesapeake Bay the same way you can find Chesapeake, blue channel crabs up in the Patapsco River, miles away from saltwater. These are euryhaline animals. They can move from different ranges of salinity very easily. But just because they can move through different ranges of salinity very easily doesn't mean they don't have an area that they prefer. There's a sweet spot where their body is doing the least amount of work to keep their stasis proper. Once they go into saltier water, they have to work harder and harder to flush the salts out. If they go into fresher water, they have to work harder and harder to flush the excess water out. Get them right in that sweet spot where they're getting the right amount of osmotic pressure and everything. That's where they prefer to be and are healthiest. But if they swim downstream or upstream, or it rains heavy, or the tides change, it doesn't impact them, but they still have a spot that they like to be in. With mollies, that's hard water to low end brackish. And the difference between brackish and hard water is hard water simply contains calcium and magnesium, maybe a little bit of iron and a few other dissolved mineral salts. But once you get into brackish water is a mixture of fresh water and seawater. And seawater has a range of dissolved mineral salts in it. So brackish water is not just like hard water plus. It's just not like extra hard water. It's got a whole bunch of mineral salts in it that regular just hard water does not. So the mollies will do okay in the harder water with just the calcium and the magnesium, but they also do really well in the brackish water that has all those other mineral salts in it as well. And again, in that low end brackish area where it's not too salty, just about where you're getting to the taste threshold. When I would do water changes on Butterbean's tank, the way I would check the salinity was not with my refractometer. I would just taste the water. If you can taste the saltiness, you're getting up into that brackish range far enough where you're getting into the low mid range brackish when you can taste it. So mollies would be right about that point where you can just kind of tell it's like that, got that salty taste to it. That's really low end brackish, and that's where mollies prefer to be. But they can go all the way up into seawater. You can get a saltwater molly that's 6 inches long, Oh, hang on, I'm going to do a bong hit, but I never put weed in it. So let's put some weed in it first. You get a lot more smoke when you do that. That was extra fancy. I had both pinkies in the air. Super fancy. Here in Utah. Okay, I see what you're saying there. I'm always willing to talk about fish stuff and science. I say this on just about every live stream. If you guys want me to talk about fish science and fish stuff, ask me questions. Talk about fish stuff. If you just want me to talk about whatever's on my mind, I'm going to talk about weed, mushrooms, and whatever else I got on my mind that I did that day. Maybe kayaking, maybe my OnlyFans. Who knows? So you guys, you guys control the narrative. If you want this to be fish keeping oriented, keep it fish keeping oriented. Otherwise, you're going to get me, and you never know what you're going to get with me. Yeah, I usually, when my guppies start breeding, I always throw them in other ponds. I know a lot of people aren't comfortable with using their baby fish as feeder fish, but I've never had a problem with that. Trouble, bubble, toil, and trouble. Why do gourami fish go to the surface? They have an organ in their head. They have an organ in their head called a labyrinth organ. I'm not sure what the real name of it is, but it's a labyrinth organ. That's why they call them labyrinth fish. The gouramis, my old tenopoma, betta fish, all these are labyrinth fish, and they go up to the surface and gulp air. And what they do is they push air up into that labyrinth, and it's like a cavity. You know, we have sinuses. That's probably the best way of thinking about it. You know, we have sinus cavities up above where we breathe in, and all the air goes up into our sinuses and gets warmed up and moistened before it goes down into our lungs. The labyrinth fish have sort of a modified version of that structure in their skull, and it's a series of bones that are all woven together, and it creates a labyrinth of passages, and they push air up into that passage, and it's highly vascular, and they're able to, almost like the way a lung allows for gas exchange, because it's so vascular, they actually get gas exchange through that labyrinth organ, and they can get extra oxygen that way. So these fish can live in completely stagnant, oxygen-free water because they can get their oxygen right from the surface. And so that's why you see betta fish and gouramis and a few other species going up and gulping air from the surface. Cories don't have that. I don't know why cories go to the surface and gulp air the way they do. My Platydoris does it as well. My striped Raphael is a Platydoris, not a Corydoris. It's supersized version of a cory, basically. And it does the same thing. It swims up to the surface occasionally, gulps air, and swims right back down. I don't know why cories do that. The labyrinth fish do it because they're pumping fresh air into their labyrinth organ. All right, where was I? How do I get my ferns so huge? A lot of light, plenty of nutrients in the tank, and patience. What kind of fish has a Facebook page? A boomer fish? No, I've never had an MBU puffer or fahaka. The only puffer I ever had was Butterbean, my figure 8 puffer, and I tried pea puffers early on, but I never had luck with the pea puffers, so that's another fish I've given up on. Yeah, gouramis, betta fish, my African spotted leaf fish that I had, my tenopoma. There's a couple other. I think datnoids might have a labyrinth organ. I know datnoids are, no. Or datnoids? I know they're brackish, but I'm not sure if they're labyrinth organs or not. Grayson, how are you? Do I know why alligators are so dumb? No, I don't. There you go, Mike. There's a good one. The catfish. Oh, I get it. Facebook catfish. Boom. I don't know. I tried pea puffers early on, didn't have any luck. Waited a year or two, got more experience, tried pea puffers again, and I still never had any luck with the pea puffers. So that's another one I've just given up on. The Tic Tac, that's from Peter Pan. Well, if you're in Utah, you probably have very different water than I have. I've got really soft, slightly acidic water that comes out of the ground that way anyway. All right, everybody, I'm going to eat me some chocolate bar here. I have to use scissors to cut the wrapper open. It doesn't open very easily at all. Where are my scissors? I brought them in here in the other room. I never brought them back. All right. See if this one made it all in one piece. It did. They usually show up broken in the middle somewhere. So I'm going to eat 3 of these, and I'm going to drink that mushroom syrup. That leaves me 12 squares. Again, just look at the quality of that. That is so smooth and creamy. That's good chocolate. And it's chocolate with benefits. It's going to be a shame to eat the or drink the syrup because it's going to wash all this delicious chocolate flavor out of my mouth. So I'm going to eat this chocolate first, and then I'm going to wait a little bit, 10 minutes or so, then I'll drink the syrup. The syrup comes on really quickly, and the chocolate comes on more slowly. So if I time it right, I can get them both coming together, and I'll get a nice good ride out of it. When I had pea puffers, that's one of the things I always thought about with my original pea puffers was all I fed them was bloodworms because that's all they seemed to want to eat. I couldn't get them to eat any other kind of food that I put in the tank, like flake food or crumbles or anything like that. And so I wound up just giving them nothing but bloodworms. And we all know you can't feed your fish a lot of bloodworms. And when you give them nothing but bloodworms, probably not going to live very long. And so I assumed that, once I'd sort of figured out the danger of the bloodworms, I went and I tried pea puffers again. And I don't remember what I fed the pea puffers the second time around, but it definitely wasn't bloodworms. Or maybe I fed them bloodworms less often and gave them brine shrimp or something like that. But again, I never had much luck with the pea puffers. And so eventually I just gave up trying to keep them. I've never seen an orange rabbit snail. I had a black rabbit snail, and it's gone. And now you can see right here my little, you probably can't see it right there. See my black racer. It's actually moving across the tank right now. He's crawling his way over there. If you watch carefully enough, you'll gradually see him move like an inch at a time or a millimeter at a time. He's slowly inching his way forward. Where he was. I don't know if he still is or not. Well, anyway, that's my black racer. He's still in there. I got him for a discount too because the very tip of his tail the very tip of his shell is broken off. It's not pointy like it should be. It's kind of broken nub and it's white, and that'll never recover. It doesn't, that's not how their shells grow. They grow from the other end and they get bigger and bigger that way. They don't extend out from the tail. So the broken, damaged end of it is just always going to be a broken, damaged end. And so the guy gave it to me for half price. It was a scratch and dent special. Yeah, I didn't have much luck with prepared food for my pea puffers either. I had to do the worms. Maybe that's what I fed them was small snails. All right, Judge Dredd. Well, if you've got a crushed coral substrate, you're going to have really hard water, and you might have trouble, and you're going to have trouble keeping more water fish. I don't know, they're getting Monica up there is going crazy with weird shit. Either that or those mushrooms kicked in. Yeah, God. That. Is it doing it on here? Yeah, it's doing it on here too. Are we better? So I was saying, if you're using crushed coral for your substrate, you're going to have really hard water. So you're going to be limited on the fish you can keep. You're going to have to keep fish that tolerate harder water, and you're going to have a lot of trouble growing plants if you've got crushed coral for a substrate. What I do in my tanks is I have a neutral substrate that doesn't affect the pH, and then I use a little bit of crushed coral in the form of oyster grit. Now that says oyster shell, but it's about 10% oyster shell and the rest is crushed coral. It's if you buy it's grit for it's poultry grit. That's the word I was looking for, poultry. So if you are going to buy the poultry grit, which is a cheaper alternative than buying the crushed coral at the aquarium store, make sure you buy the poultry grit that is for laying hens, because that's calcium carbonate. It's got a lot of the crushed coral in there, and they get the calcium for their eggs. Regular poultry grit is crushed granite. And so that's inert. It's not going to dissolve. It's just not going to do anything in your tank. So if you get the crushed granite, not going to do anything. So if you do buy the poultry grit, make sure it's for laying hens and read the ingredients. It'll tell you what it's made out of. And you want the stuff that's crushed coral and oyster shell. And what I do is I put a little bit of that in one of those mesh bags, and then I put the mesh bag in my canister filter. So a little bit of it is dissolving into my water, and it keeps the pH stable that way. Remember, as your tank processes waste and it's breaking things down, whether it's waste that's decomposing on the bottom or it's the ammonia that's being expressed directly out of the fish's gills, as that process happens, hydrogen ions are being released into the tank. When the ammonia is oxidized and gets transformed into nitrite, a little hydrogen ion goes off into the tank. When that nitrite gets oxidized and turned into nitrate, little hydrogen ion goes off into the tank. Your pH is a count of hydrogen ions. The more hydrogen ions you have in the tank, the lower your pH will be. And that's a little complicated, but the pH means the power of hydrogen. So the more hydrogen you have in the tank, the more acidic it is. And we measure acidity with the lower pH. So more is more. The more hydrogen you have, the more acidic it becomes. But the way we measure acidity is by a lowering and lowering scale. So as your nitrogen cycle happens, just as your tank functions, you're reducing the pH. You're adding hydrogen ions to that water. If you don't have anything in the tank itself that's going to neutralize those hydrogen ions, then you need to do regular water changes and refresh the water and get some of those hydrogen ions out of there. Otherwise, as they just keep building, they don't go anywhere. So as those hydrogen ions just keep building and building and building in your tank, your pH is going to start falling. And eventually it'll get to a point where it just crashes and it gets so low that you start having real issues in your aquarium. So by having a small amount of calcium carbonate in the tank, as it's slowly dissolving, it's putting that calcium carbonate, which is the same thing as when you take an antacid, it's calcium carbonate. That calcium ion neutralizes the hydrogen ion. So I don't want a shit ton of the calcium carbonate. That would put too much calcium carbonate in my water. I don't have that much acid being produced or I don't have that much hydrogen being produced in here. We can think of it as saying I don't have a lot of acid being produced in the tank, but it is being produced. And so I need to have something that's going to counteract that. So depending on where you want your pH to sit, you just dial in exactly how much calcium carbonate you need that will release enough calcium ions to interact with the hydrogen ions. And as they cancel each other out, your pH will stay stable right where it is. You got more calcium, the pH is going to start going up. You've got more hydrogen, pH is going to start going down. You get it right where you want it, and you can balance your tank and keep the pH fairly stable, right around neutral or 6.8, something like that, wherever you want it. And so my tanks well, I guess not all of them, but most of my tanks do have some calcium carbonate in them, but it's a limited amount, just so that I'm adding enough calcium to neutralize additional acids. But I don't want hard water tanks, and I don't want a high pH. I haven't tested the pH on this tank in a while. Let's go see. I'll get a piece of pH paper and we'll test. It should be around neutral. They usually sit around neutral. Why do they call it a clown pleco? I guess just because of the striping on it. Mike, did you just join us? I'm losing track of my mics here. Do I still sniff smelling tanks? I'm assuming that's a typo. I usually sniff my aquariums. Don't necessarily stick my face in there and sniff them, but when I open the lid to feed them, I can smell the aquarium. No, I don't have any idea about ordering eggs. Wouldn't know what to tell you. Well, you can lower the pH, but you're not going to lower the amount of hardness in your water by adding those leaves. So if you're trying to soften your water to keep a softer water species of fish, you may be able to lower the pH, but what you really need to do is lower the hardness. The hardness is more important than the actual pH. So if you've got really hard water and you're able to bring the pH down by adding the botanicals, which is basically just tannic acid is what's doing it. The tannic acid is lowering your pH. But it's still going to be hard water. You're still going to have all that calcium and magnesium dissolved into the water. So if you want softer water fish, you're still going to have to reduce the water's hardness. You're still going to have to soften the water, not just lower the pH. Water hardness and pH are not related. Carbonate hardness and pH are related, but water hardness, general hardness, and pH are not related. All right, let me go get my, let me get caught up first, and I'm going to go grab my pH paper. Granite made from Pangea, and we throw it in our fish tanks. How much do snails pull calcium out of the tank? Probably not a lot. I don't know for sure, but I would say probably not a lot. They get the majority of their calcium in their diet. I use, I don't use the paper strips really. I do sometimes for nitrate. I haven't tested my water in so long. All right, I know I have a lighter around here somewhere. Oh, it's up here. Let me do another hit off this bowl. I ought to do another bong hit. Oh, let me drink my damn mushroom syrup. It's almost 10 o'clock. I got to get started on this shit. This is going to keep me up till the morning anyway. I'll be fucking watching the sun come up. Great. The more I drink that, the more I can kind of understand where people say it has that medicine-y taste. The strawberry really had the medicine-y taste, but this grape is starting to get a little medicine-y on me too. I'm looking for my pH paper. It's around here somewhere. I thought it was in my garden room, but it must be, here it is. I hate those test bottles and whatnot for the pH, so I just use simple, good old-fashioned pH paper. It's hard to go wrong with pH paper. Now, remember, this is not litmus paper; it's pH paper. Litmus paper only turns blue or pink, and it simply tells you whether the water is acidic or not. It doesn't really give you a how acidic. It just tells you whether it is or isn't. So you got to give it a moment or two to really start to let its color get going. So that's neutral. And I'd say at line, you can't even tell where the paper ends and the. So, that's neutral. That's 8. We're definitely not at 8. And then the more yellowy one, that's 6. We're definitely not at 6. So there you go. That is smack on neutral. Now, I don't know how this, since it only goes in single, 6 is 10 times as acidic as 7. So at what point does this start looking like from 7 to looking like 6? Does it have to get all the way down to 6 before it changes color? Does it shift at 7.5 and then begin looking more like 6? I don't know. I don't know exactly how these work like that. But if I've got it at anywhere between 6.5 and 7.5 and it's just showing it as neutral, that's fine. I'm not running a scientific experiment here for Johns Hopkins. I just need to get an idea of where my fish tanks are sitting. And that bit of pH paper is plenty of information for me to know that my tank, as per usual, sitting right around neutral. If that showed up at 8, I'd have been alarmed. I'd have started maybe looking at some other tests and maybe seeing what's going on. If it showed up at 6, I'd have maybe checked my bag of calcium carbonate to see if that's gone and now the pH is starting to fall or something like that. But most of my tanks, I test them, they just come out at neutral pretty much all the time, which is kind of where I want them sitting. Neutral's just, it's neutral. Just about any kind of fish can live in it, at least tolerably. Some fish that prefer much harder water don't do well in my water because even though it's a neutral pH, it is still very soft. But at a neutral pH, I don't have issues with anything, really. I don't have issues with my water chemistry. I don't have issues with the fish going through any kind of shock. My plants are still right in that sweet spot of maximum nutrient absorption. 6.8 is probably the sweetest of sweet spots for your plants. But once you get up above 7.5, you start struggling with your plants. Once you get up above 7.8, you really struggle, and there's very few plants that will be able to tolerate a pH higher than 7.8. The availability of the various nutrients that the plants need, whether it's from the substrate or from the water column, they fall in or out of solubility based on the acidity. And if you look at all the trace nutrients that a plant needs and you look at where their sweet spot is, some of them are, from 6.5 all the way up to 8.5. Others are from 5 up to 7.5. So there's a lot of shift between the range of where a lot of these things are soluble. But right down the middle, there's a column between like 6.4 and 7.2 where just about everything falls into that category. And like 6.8 is right down the middle. And if your pH is there, all the nutrients that your plants need are available to it. You go a little bit higher, some of those that don't go quite so high aren't going to be there anymore, whereas others still will be. So it's not like once you get past a certain point, all plant food availability gets cut off because of the acidity or the alkalinity. As you get higher and higher, they start dropping off. Each little bar that goes up to wherever is its maximum absorption level. Some are 7.5, some are 8, some are 7.8. And so again, as you get higher and higher, you get less and less availability of nutrients until you get up to about 8.5. After 8.5, you're just not really being able to, nothing really is soluble at a pH of 8.5 or above. So that's why people have trouble in harder water tanks growing plants. It's
It's not because of the water's hardness necessarily, but oftentimes hard water also has a higher pH. Again, it's the general hardness is not related to the pH, but usually when you have a high amount of general hardness, it also accompanies a high amount of carbonate hardness. And so that higher carbonate hardness allows for higher pH. And so they seem to be associated. But you can also have very hard water that doesn't have a lot of carbonates in it. And so you can have a pH of 6.5 and a hardness of 15, liquid concrete, but still have acidic water if it doesn't have the carbonates mixed in with it. So you can have calcium and magnesium till the cows come home, but if there's no carbonate in there, your pH is going to just fall. It's the carbonate that matters, which is it's represented as KH, or carbonate hardness, based on the German spelling of carbonate. That's where that K comes from. So again, the reason the water hardness is usually associated with the pH is more often than not, when we make the water harder, whether it's out in nature or here in our aquariums, it's as a result of calcium carbonate. It's water flowing through limestone rocks and stuff like that. And when it dissolves, the calcium and the carbonate disassociate from each other. So the calcium is what's giving you your water hardness, but the carbonate is what's giving you your up and down on your pH and everything. There are ways you can have calcium dissolved into the water that don't carry the carbonates with it. And so you're just getting the calcium. The water is very hard, but you don't have the stability of the pH because there's no carbonates involved in it. It took me a long time to sort that out and figure out the difference between, water hardness and pH and all that kind of stuff. It can get complicated. All right, let's see. Where are we? There we are. All right, Michael, good night. Yeah, I always had this same problem, Mike. I'd use the low end test and it would look like it was coming out higher than it. I'd use the high end test and it would look like it was coming out lower. And then if I did the same test 3 times in a row, I'd get a different pH every time I did it. So I just gave up on those stupid drop bottles. You got a face that you didn't even know you had? No, Shirley, I don't know anything about that at all. I saw your post about it. Now I use you do 3, 4, 5 pH tests in a row, you get a different fucking result every time you do it. I stopped using those API drip tests years ago. Just a good old piece of pH paper. Again, it's not going to give you a precise 7.3, but do you want to know if your tank's neutral? Is it 7? Is it 8? Is it 9? It gets you close enough that, we're not doing anything that requires pinpoint precision when we do our water changes and stuff like that. I know some people out there get really anal about making sure their water temperature exactly matches. I used to when I first got started keeping fish because I didn't know any better. I wanted to make sure that water temperature didn't fluctuate. Now I don't even worry about it. A lot of times if I'm not doing a big water change, I don't even run hot water. I just run straight cold water into the tank and it's fine. It only shifts the temperature a few degrees and it doesn't bother the fish a bit. But some people out there are really particular about their, pH and making sure everything's exactly right where it wants to be and is perfect and all that kind of stuff. I don't care. That pH paper's fine. I just need ballpark numbers just to get an idea what's going on in the tank. So I use the pH paper. It's dirt cheap. One roll of it lasts for a long time. Well, lasts me for a long time because I don't check my pH very often. But you get like 5 feet of pH paper for a few dollars. Where were we? Well, YouTube is using AI now, so expect everything to get stupid. That vaccine was well tested before it went out into populations. That's fucking stupid. It was not. It was not untested when it went out into the fucking population. What was I getting ready to say? Oh, right, about the AI. The YouTube is starting to use AI to do its filtering and stuff like that. And you're going to have people showing up, depending on what kind of videos and stuff you watch. If you do like a lot of gaming videos and stuff like that, you might very well try to watch a video that's a restricted video that you never thought about before because it was never, you're an adult, so you clicked on it and you watched it. Now YouTube is doing this thing where the AI is going to decide based on your viewing history whether you're an adult or not. And if you watch a lot of cartoons or you watch a lot of stuff that the AI decides is kid stuff, they'll block you from watching adult videos on YouTube because the AI will say you're a child no matter what your birth date and your profile and all that says. So that's part of it. And I know they're using it for their what's the moderation? Like you say, you called somebody stupid. You've now got AI trying to decide whether that's too aggressive or whatever. And so there's going to be issues with, what's going to happen to the algorithm and how you're going to get fed different stuff because they're letting this stupid fucking AI shit ruin everything. And so YouTube's probably going to get a lot worse until they realize, hey, the AI fucked everything up. Let's go back to not using AI. So we got to go through the fucked up period before they go back to not using the fucked up thing. So get ready for that kind of stuff. I've uploaded videos already that have tagged for restrictions. I've never had a video come up saying it was restricted ever in all the years I've been doing this. It's like 12 years now. For the first time the other day, I had one of my videos, even though I posted that there's nothing, they care more about advertisers than they do children. So as long as it's advertiser friendly, that's what they're worried about. And I told them that everything on my video is advertiser friendly. And they normally let me they take my word for it unless something comes up later. And for the first time the other day, when I clicked on, everything's okay. And when I went to upload the video, it said there's one restriction has been placed on this video. And I was like, what the fuck is the restriction placed on there for? And it was my video about the tannin. And the only thing I can think is I said one sentence in there where I said it's a 15-year-old piece of wood. And I'm assuming the phrase 15-year-old got tagged by the AI and they put a restriction on the video. Now they took it off a few minutes later after somebody checked it, I guess. But that's the kind of stuff that's going to start happening. The way you phrase things, the searches you do, all of that stuff's going to start affecting your YouTube experience because AI is now managing it. So, yeah, fuck them pigs. I agree with you. I told somebody something the other day that blew their mind. And he thought it was funny because he had a friend. Well, I'll tell you the story. I was mentioning about Pink Floyd's Animals, and the album Animals is sort of like a musical version of Animal Farm. The pigs represent the capitalists, the greedy capitalists. The dogs represent the police and the authoritarian state. And I'll let you guess who the sheep are.
And that's what it is. It's again, Pink Floyd, Roger Waters, very anti-capitalist, very anti-fascist, and so the whole album, Animals, is sort of like a musical representation of animal farms. You've got the pigs, you've got the dogs, you've got the sheep, and it's you're waiting for the dogs, you're hiding from the dogs, you're waiting for the greedy pigs to come. It's a great album, it really is. I was talking to Steve about it the other day. You guys know Steve. And he just started laughing, and he had a buddy. He said, it's unfortunately the guy's dead now, so he's never going to get to know the truth. But he was one of those like fucking staunch capitalist and always talked about how awesome capitalism was and all that kind of stuff. But he also thought Animals was like the greatest album ever made and fucking loved Animals and whatever. And Steve was like, man, it would just fucking destroy him to know that the whole album is basically an anti-capitalism album, you know, talking about the greedy pigs and the violent dogs and the stupid sheep. It's a great album. Pink Floyd's just such an amazing band. There'll never be another Pink Floyd. Let's see. Pigs in space. No, that's not what the pigs represented. The pigs represented the greedy capitalists. No, it's not smart at all. There's nothing smart about AI. It's just crunching numbers. It's an algorithm. It's clever and it's fascinating and it's brilliant that they can do that. But they really, really downplay the artificial part of artificial intelligence. It's something that appears to be intelligence. But it's not. It just seems like it's intelligence, but it's not. It's just a fucking data scrape or a word scrape that compiles the most likely next thing. Again, it's fascinating how they've done it, and you know, it's amazing, but there's no thinking or anything like that involved in it. It's going to cause so many problems. Yeah, Animals is one of the four big ones. You got Animals, Wish You Were Here, Dark Side, and The Wall are the three biggies for me. Oh, let's see. I'll be shrooming here soon. I can't wait till my real shrooms are ready. No, capitalists aren't ignorant at all. They know exactly what the fuck they're doing. Oh, I know we don't talk politics on this channel, but you guys don't have to tell me anything. I don't think any of you realize how fucking bad things are going to be in the next couple of years. Like, seriously, buckle up, Buttercup. It's going to get fucking bad. It's going to get really bad. Everything from the police state to the economy to censorship to violence, like everything is going to get really, really fucking bad over the next few years. Just prepare for it. AI is good for some things. I'm not saying it doesn't. It's a tool, but it's not intelligent. It's good for using certain things. Christopher once was talking about how he was using AI programs to help him map out the floor plan and square footage and stuff like that. Something like that is great. It's mathematical. It's figuring out the most logical way to put everything that's going to maximize your space and everything. It's good for doing something like that. But if you ask it, you know, should I take this medication or not? It's scraping information, or if you ask it a question about the news or something, it's just scraping information that's already out there from somebody, and it doesn't know the difference between a real news article and a fucking Onion, you know, satire article. And so it just pulls all that information together to what is the most likely information. And so you get, you know, they've already had people poisoned from AI. Again, remember that guy that tried to blow up the Trump building in Las Vegas? He drove his Cybertruck in and had all the fireworks and gasoline and shit in the back. He did that because he asked AI how to build a bomb. And that's dumb shit is what the AI told him to do. And that dumb shit did that dumb shit. He built it the way the AI said it because he assumed it was going to be a good bomb. And I mean, it started a hell of a fire and put on a fireworks display, burned his truck up and everything, but it was anything but a bomb. There was nothing to even contain the It was ridiculous. A child would understand that that wasn't a bomb. And this fucking idiot put it all together and drove it into a hotel and tried to blow it up. He thought it was going to be like an Oklahoma City style. Like he thought he literally was going to like take out the fucking, lobby of the hotel and do all this massive damage with that piece of shit thing he made. And it was fireworks and gasoline. Or diesel fuel or some shit like that. It was a joke. That's why nobody understood what was this supposed to be. Was it just a statement where he was burning his cyber truck up? Like nobody knew that was supposed to be a bomb because it was so dumb of an idea for a bomb. But that was AI. So AI is good for some things. It's a tool that can be used. It's like a hammer. A hammer works fucking great at hammering nails, but it's shit for spreading butter on toast. You use the right tool for the right job. And if you use AI for things that it's good at doing, it's a very useful tool. It uses a small country's worth of electricity to do it, where you could probably do the same thing on a pocket calculator. But if you want to use AI to do it, then, again, there are tools you can use that it's effective at. Asking it information and asking it philosophical questions and shit like that. It's usually not necessarily going to give you a best result. Oh, well, my neighbor flies an American flag 24/7 and is unvaccinated, and you guys get the idea. The way I look is protective camouflage for where I live. Damn dirty apes. That's another good reference. Well, you could use it if you wanted. I guess if you use the front of it, you smooth out real easy. Yeah, I heard about the guy leaving his wife to marry his AI girlfriend. I should get on Y-Files backstage. I don't know what that means. Was that a podcast or something? How many times has humanity been around this star? I don't know, a lot. Depends on how you define humanity. All right, let's do a dab before my mushrooms kick in. I haven't done a dab all night, I don't think. Well, of course I haven't, because I don't have my dab stuff in there, do I? Oh, what are we going to do? Let's do this. All right, I got everything I need now. Yeah, that's what I said. It depends on how you define humanity and how far back we go. All right, everybody. I can actually feel those mushrooms starting to work on me a little bit. I'm getting that tingly feeling. That's the onset of it. So I'm going to be winding down. I'm getting out of here. So make sure you all tune back in on Sunday night and you get your last thoughts in. I'm not leaving it this instant, but hang out. Wee. I should get a fog machine. Always keeps some smoke in the room. And the disco light looks so much better when you can actually see the light swirling. Ooh, I'm going to have to listen to my Pink Floyd album again. This is an actual screenshot basically from the concert with the light show and the lasers and everything. This is towards the end when they're doing this light show is actually doing the song Run Like Hell from The Wall. You all know Run Like Hell. It's when he turns to fascism and everybody has to run like hell to get the fuck away. Well, modern Homo sapien has been around for at least 300,000 or 400,000 years. We know that. Whether you want to call the earliest of our species humanity or not, I do, because they were human. They were exactly like me or you. If you ran into them at the shopping mall today, you wouldn't know the difference between them. They were modern Homo sapiens. They were just like us. That happened about 300 to 400,000 years ago. Unless we find a new, we suddenly find a Homo sapien, fossil that's a million years old or some shit that completely changes the way we think about things. But right now, the basic common understanding: no Homo sapien fossils ever been found older than about 300 to 400,000 years, and then immediately beyond that, you start getting into other hominid species and stuff. So probably around 300 to 400,000 years ago is where we came onto the scene, and we were every bit as smart, intellectual, thinking. We were 100% modern day humans 400,000 years ago. So let that sink in. And their own caveman version of Pink Floyd. Try listening to several species of small furry animals gathered together in a cave and grooving with a pick. I know that's a long song title, and if you're familiar with Pink Floyd, I know you know the song. I believe it's either on Metal or Ummagumma. But listen to that song while you got some mushrooms rolling around. It's fucking wild. I like it. It sounds like chipmunks and squirrels and stuff all like beatboxing and grooving together. It's a really interesting sound when you got some mushrooms rolling through your brain. Hell yeah, I was the model species. We've never improved since then. How could you? I heard a good comment about Pink Floyd the other day. I told it the other night, but I'll say it again. Somebody pointed out, I was watching a Pink Floyd video, and underneath the video, somebody pointed out how you don't need marijuana to fully appreciate Pink Floyd. You need Pink Floyd to fully appreciate marijuana. And I thought that was a good way of saying that. So Ummagumma, okay. Oh, it's really chaotic. And if you got headphones on, all the movement back and forth and swirling, somehow, even though you got headphones on and it's one side or the other, they still give you this around kind of experience, and you get this three-dimensional swirling. And again, this Pink Floyd is the fucking greatest. Careful with that X, Eugene. Set the controls for the Heart of the Sun. There's a bunch of good ones on those old albums. But that's the problem with those older albums. They had a few good songs on them, and then 40% of it was just noise. It was all that experimental shit. It was just noise to me. It's awful. It's hard to listen to. I say this all the time, but I'm not a huge fan of the early Pink Floyd stuff, and the real early Pink Floyd stuff that still had Syd Barrett. I know it's almost blasphemy to say anything bad about the Syd Barrett years to a Pink Floyd fan, but I got to be honest, I'm not a big fan of the early years. Like once Syd Barrett and all that got out of the way, and they sort of got over the experimental bullshit and said, "Hey, I know, I got this wild idea. Let's try making an album that people will want to listen to." And so they came up with fucking Animals, or they came up with Wish You Were Here or something, and then bam, all of a sudden they were making good music. Like, there's no part of Animals that isn't good. There's no part of Wish You Were Here that isn't good. There's not a single song on Dark Side that's not a fucking banger. Every bit of The Wall is an amazing album from start to finish. It's this whole huge story arc that tells three different stories simultaneously. It's brilliant. The Syd Barrett years was them all banging on instruments and playing different shit and trying discordant notes, and it was just weird, experimental, young, pushing the edge, doing drugs and shit like that. I'm sure it was cool, but it's just hard to listen to. It doesn't sound good. It's not enjoyable. So fuck all that early Pink Floyd stuff. Like I said, they had some really good ones. Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun. Careful with that Axe, Eugene. One of These Days. There's a bunch of them that are good songs. I like Astronomy Donomy, Saint Tropez, some of the more sing-songy kind of songs that are in early Pink Floyd. Those are good songs. Those were songs. They were instruments. You could sing along with them. They had a rhythm. They had a fucking melody. The shit where it sounds like four different people playing four different songs at the same time. Like, just fucking leave that shit off the album, you know? Anyway, I can see I'm starting to shed viewers, so you're already tired of hearing about Pink Floyd. And I'm getting out of here anyway. I have been wanting to I've been watching my Delicate Sound of Thunder video, but I've been wanting to watch the Pompeii, Pink Floyd live at Pompeii. I haven't seen that in so many years. It's funny. They if you look at the front of the imagery, it shows them sitting out in front of all their instruments and all their equipment and everything. And back then, that was a shitload. They've always been a cutting edge, high tech, very highly produced band. And even in the Pompeii, like when you saw all those instruments, and you know, that was a lot for then. God, you look at a modern Pink Floyd concert, or you look at a Pink Floyd concert from the 90s or something, and look at what they did, and the laser shows and the props and the flying pigs and fucking, oh, it's insane. Iron Maiden and Slayer. No, I'm not a huge fan of either of them. I used to listen to Iron Maiden when I was a teenager. Never listened to Slayer. Your younger son has a mullet. Def Leppard was all right too. Speaking of mullets, I never, like, I've seen some pretty serious mullets in my day. I never realized what an amazing head full of mullet the sax player had on the Delicate Sound of Thunder tour. If you want to see the most legendary mullet ever, watch some of that Delicate Sound of Thunder tour until you see the guy doing like a sax solo, or they do a close up on the guy in the sax. It's all just like pumped up in the front and swooped back real tight on the sides and everything. And then from here back, it's just like golden flowing elven hair that goes like 3/4 of the way down his back. He looks like fucking Galadriel from the back, and then he looks like a clean cut, you know, dude from the front or whatever. It's really 80s looking. It's really dated, but it's the mulletiest mullet I've ever seen. The only thing it's really missing is the height. You know, a good mullet's got to have like some fucking volume up top and then the shit in the back. This is kind of tight, and then just goes into this huge, long, flowing, golden, you know, blonde hair behind him. It's wild. It's a look. All right, everybody. I am definitely feeling those mushrooms now. So we are going to call it a night, and I will see you guys on Sunday. I keep forgetting it's Friday. It's been a weird week. So, all right, everybody, thanks for hanging out. I hope you guys all enjoyed the evening as much as I did. Remember, if you want to join the channel, become a member, it's $2.99 a month. That is not the Patreon. You join on the YouTube channel. That'll get you access to a members-only live stream on Wednesdays. And then, of course, it'll also get you access to the Discord server as well. So if you want those extra bonuses, then you can sign up. It's $2.99 a month. Bargain for what you get. Well, assuming you enjoy my live streams. Hamilton, how are you doing? All right, final dab of the evening. Look at all that party going on. All right, everybody. Once again, I'm going to say thanks for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this evening as much as I did. And I will see you all on Sunday. So long, and thanks for all the fish. All right, everybody. Good night.